Welcome back to the Business Voice. I'm Deanna Palm, president of the Hillsboro Chamber.
And I'm Julie Ames.
And with us here today in the studio, we have Ben Pelster, owner of Mr. Electric of Hillsboro. Welcome, Ben.
Thank you.
So talk a little bit about your background. And this is your business, and it's a franchise business. So talk a little bit about how you found this franchise, how you decided that this was the right one for you. But I'm really interested in terms of hearing about sort of the trajectory that took you to this important point in your career.
All right. Well, I guess it starts a long time ago. Back in high school, I actually took electrical classes at a technical high school in Portland called Benson Polytechnic. I'm sure a lot of people know about it.
Absolutely.
And after high school, I wasn't quite old enough to get into the apprenticeship, so I took a year of community college and I got into the electrical apprenticeship. And when I'm 33 now, so 18 to 33 equals 15 years I've been an electrician. It's been a long time. So during the course of my early career, they do teach you about some of the economics of being a contractor. And to be perfectly honest, it's not it's kind of
not a get rich quick, is it?
It's not a get rich. It's definitely a long haul. And during that whole process, I had never really decided that I wanted to be an electrical contractor in the early stages, just because of all of the amount of setup and the return on investment is kind of a long-term goal. So after 14 years and doing electrical work and kind of reaching the top of where you can get before starting to do your own thing, I was starting to feel a little stagnant, doing the same thing every day. I had tried switching contractors, and that helps with the change, but it's really the same thing with a different color van, so to speak. So one day, and I was actually broken down alongside of the road. My transmission on my truck went out, and had I got a phone call when I was actually busy doing something else, I might not have taken it. But I took a phone call from the Mr. Electric, a recruiter, and we started talking. And a lot of the previous hesitations that I had about starting my own contracting business were kind of helped along a bit by the franchise model, if that kind of makes sense. So there's a lot of the systems that go into place in becoming a successful contractor that being part of a larger corporation really helps. However, what's interesting about the franchise model is if you look at being a residential service base is our bread and butter. We do commercial work, but with the residential base, you really need to be part of the community that you serve. Nobody really wants to hire an electrician from Texas to come and do work on their house, and they're going to be gone the next day. So it's kind of interesting that works well with the franchise model is, although I have the resources of a large corporation behind me, I also this is, my own locally owned business. And when it comes to the day-to-day operations, as long as I, maintain their corporate standards, if you know what I mean, it's really my own business. And so what's kind of nice is that, I get a lot of resources when it comes to my internet advertising with marketing specialists that they do different market analysis here in Hillsboro for me, along with business consulting, and also access to the other franchisees, because you can't really, if you're a contractor, you can't go to your competition and ask them what's working for them and what's not. They're not going to tell you. But as part of a franchisee, I can pick up the phone and call Mr. Electric of Atlanta and ask them, have you had success doing this, that, or the other thing? So that having those resources are pretty big. Help with getting your business up off the ground and getting it sustainable and profitable early on.
So talk a little bit about how you go about finding customers. How do you bid jobs? Those kinds of things. What differentiates you from other electrician contractors that are out in the Hillsboro area?
Well, first off, as far as finding work at the moment, right now there's a big shortage of tradesmen across the board.
Right.
And there's a few reasons for that. One is the recent economic downturn of 10 years ago. It's been a little while now. Has really during that period they weren't really training very many new tradesmen because there wasn't a need. But in the meanwhile, our workforce has gotten a lot of them to retirement age.
Right.
So we've lost a lot of tradesmen over the last decade and haven't made very many new ones. So at the moment, there's a large shortage. And with tradesmen, and specifically when it comes to your licensed trades like electrical, plumbing, and the other licensed similar trades, you can't just go out and hire a guy and send him to a 6-week class. My license took 4 years to get. It's its own. Basically, it's the original college education. It was the apprenticeship system. So that's one challenge we're coming across now. So as far as finding work nowadays is not all that difficult, believe it or not.
Until we really showcase this as being, a great viable profession, you don't have kids that are coming out of high school like you that had the opportunity to get a bit of exposure to the trade of being an electrician anymore. And so they're kind of like, well, I didn't know who did that. They don't know.
Well, and the apprenticeship, the pay scale for an electrician is actually pretty comparable to someone with a college education. So, and what's actually kind of nice about doing an apprenticeship is that you're actually working the whole time. So you're actually not going into debt while you're going to school, which is a pretty nice. So if anybody out there is interested, there are several apprenticeship programs available, and you can also go to the Bureau of Labor and Industry, and they have the wage package details for standard electrical wages on there. So something you can look into.
Great example of, an opportunity in that career.
And it's interesting that right in high school, you knew where you wanted to go. How did you know you wanted to become an electrician?
No, that was kind of a neat program about Benson High School. Is you start your freshman year, and they give you kind of a sampling of the different trades that they offer. And electrical is one of them. They did automotive and machining, and to be perfectly honest, in today's day and age, all those different we call them blue-collar trades are severely lacking, and there are actually can all make very good careers. And I kind of latched on to that electrical trade in high school. It was something that I was pretty good at, and I didn't really relish the idea of going to another 4-year college for something else, and so I kind of pursued that right out of high school. My only problem is I graduated when I was 17, so I had to wait another year in order to actually get into the apprenticeship. So
Ben, here you are today, owner of your own business. Talk a little bit about what were some of the surprises and challenges that you faced. Really moving from being an employee to an employer, and what in small business ownership, sort of what are the challenges that you face that maybe you weren't aware of?
Well, I had when I was a little disheartened there when you hit the top of your career and you can't move on.
Right.
I took a very short gap there, and I figured that I've been in the electrical industry a long time, so I actually went and I worked for a fabrication shop, being their general manager. So, and at that shop, I did everything from payroll to filing taxes. He did all of his payroll, all of his taxes, everything in-house, and it was a really great experience, which really helped me make that gap from being an employee to being an employer. And I kind of wished I would have got that experience in my specific trade as opposed to, slightly out of trade there. And I was there for about 18 months or so. And but it was great experience. The one thing that kind of gets you is basically the speed that everything hits you at. You're really standing right in the line of fire of a rapid fire thing.
Right,
you know what
the
I mean.
process.
You get everything from getting your corporation paperwork filed if you're going to incorporate, even just choosing what's your incorporation. Now, when you're adding on the contracting bit, I need to figure out my business status, and then I need to get my CCB license, my electrical license, my insurance, my bonds. There's a lot of stuff that kind of all comes all at once. It's all kind of tangled together, what needs to go first, what needs to go second, all the way up to getting your doors open. So it's really no one thing is particularly unsurmountable, and there's plenty of resources out there. It's just the quantity and the speed at which they come at you is can be staggering.
So the sort of drinking from a fire hose approach.
Exactly.
Right, because, and also working with, having a franchise, they also, help you through that process, but they also want you to move through that process because, they're starting to announce we've got a Mr. Electric in the area. And I do want to ask you about, what's your region or your territory that you serve. But I would imagine that the sooner you get off the ground is the better for them, and having, that expansion of that brand that they've created as well.
Yeah, so on the franchise side, they really help me do everything on the I should say on their system side.
Right.
So that they help me, get my uniforms, get all my printed materials, get my software set up with all the different everything. So they help me with a lot of the other stuff. A lot of the stuff that they really don't help with is that they're not really an expert in your local laws
right,
for
the
all
statewide
50
regulation.
states.
Right.
So when it comes to a lot of your contracting stuff, that's typically all state driven.
And it's going to be a little bit different for every single state. And, if I'm them, I don't want to take on the responsibility of knowing that. So that's kind of your thing.
Exactly. So it's getting your business entities and everything set up in your local state is really the part, though.
I think that's excellent. And Ben, you've really helped in terms of, talking about the importance of, expanding our thinking about the trades and, what a great profession it can become. And that, you kind of have taken the steps along the trajectory of, of small business ownership. And I really like the idea that you went to work with for somebody that in an operational setting that gave you sort of that exposure to payroll and other types of business operations that you might not as an employee contractor working for a contractor. So that's a really neat way to go about sort of building your own expertise in terms of owning your own business. So talk a little bit about sort of what type of services and our listeners, how they might use your service, when they might use your service, who to call. Do you do just residential, some small commercial? Or
So I do residential, light commercial, and my exclusive territory is Washington County. So if you call Mr. Electric in Washington County, you're going to be coming to me.
Right.
That's right. I also do serve some of the rural areas on the west side, the Columbia County out towards the coast as need be. And we our first focus is residential. However, we also service light commercial. I'm probably getting a little out of my wheelhouse to try to do some heavy industrial commercial. I'm probably not your guy, but definitely a light commercial residential. Like I said, we focus on that residential experience, though, as well. So when you call us, you're going to get a clean, uniformed professional, and he's going to be someone that you're going to our goal is to have somebody that you're going to feel safe coming into your home. We're going to respect your home. We're going to try to keep it as clean as possible, and then we're also going to provide you that expert electrical service. So whether it be a bad plug or a bad GFCI, or if you're going to need a new panel, or if you're just looking to get a hot tub or something hooked up, kind of across the board, we can take care of it there. So.
Excellent. So, Ben, how would our listeners learn more about you and Mr. Electric of Hillsboro? Do you have a website, telephone number, any of that contact information you can share with our listeners?
Yeah, you can reach us on the internet at www.mrelectric.com. And our phone number is 503-506-2290.
Excellent. Ben, thank you so much for being with us here today. Much success in your new franchise opportunity here in Hillsboro. And to our listeners, if you need some electricity work done, that's kind of the thing that you don't want to do on your own if you don't have the expertise. It really is something you want to call the expert. I would encourage you to call Mr. Electric of Hillsboro and tell Ben we said hello. Thank you, Ben.
Thank you.